All right, welcome back to the Lady K podcast. I'm Katy McKinney, the founder and head of school for Lafayette Academy. And today we have a very special guest, Dr. Khalid Khan, who is one of our math teachers here at Lafayette Academy, his first year here with us. And I think what makes Dr. Khan's story so compelling is your background between global tech and education. And you've worked with organizations like CSC, a global IT service and consulting company, Citibank, Allstate, and you've also earned your doctorate in STEM education, which is interesting. And you've seen really education from a multitude of angles. But what I find fascinating here is that you've intentionally chosen a classical model in which to invest your energies and your talents. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation. So welcome, Dr. Khalid Khan.
Thank you. It's a joy to be here. Thank you.
So I'd love to just start with your journey to go from the tech world to education. Can you give us a little bit of insight as to how this unfolded?
Yeah, sure. So it all started, I was hired in India. At that time I was out of college and I was hired for a company in New York. It's an insurance company and I was to join there in 2001, so some 25 years ago. And that's when I started this journey, and I worked there in different companies. Mostly it was financial services company, insurance. I started building computer softwares and systems, design, development, maintenance. And my team spread across the continent, and it's real joy working there. Mm-hmm. So I worked there about, as I said, 19, 20 years. But that was there in back of my mind that at some point there was a spark in me that I have to get into education, but there has to be the right time for that, and I have to see that everything is right for me to make that switch. Because I had seen my parents working really hard to give me the better opportunity that they had. And I always believed that education is a powerful, weapon to change the world, as famously Dr. Mandela said. I truly believe that. So I wanted to invest in people, invest into young mind, and give them the opportunity that I had coming from wherever I came from, a small town in India. I found that right time, and I managed my whatever the risk in switching, and then I made that jump, and I'm here.
So, and then when getting your PhD in STEM, has that what I guess that obviously dovetailed into your career quite nicely, the STEM component of it, or why did you choose that, and how has it benefited you?
Yeah, when I got into education, so I had to learn how to teach. I was good in education from the beginning. I was a science and math enthusiast, but doesn't make me a good teacher. So I got into education and I did my master's, and then I did my doctorate in education. So I felt, and in the side I started teaching, and that really helped me to apply the theories that I got into my campus, and that really helped me explore different ways of teaching and different theories and philosophies. And the great thing about doctorate is they load you with several theories, and they don't tell you which one is the right one. It is for me to pick and choose, because when you get that level, so it is you are the one who has to figure out. So yes, that helped me, and yeah, I made it a point to get educated before getting into the real teaching. Yeah.
Smart. Well, we've talked a little bit about mathematics being a classical liberal art, and I wondered if you could expound on that for our audience.
So liberal is kind of freedom, and teaching, learning math, having confidence in math gives you freedom. Traditionally, liberal arts, like the content in like math and science, those were considered for free people, those people who can think for themselves, who are not needed to be, follow instructions. So people traditionally learn math not just for doing something, but just to understand how it helps them see the order, beauty, and truth in math. So that's how I feel, and that's what I teach in my classroom, that math is not just a little tools for you that helps you in doing your day-to-day things. Of course, it does that, but it helps you. It helps extend your horizon, and that's how I see. And classical education certainly believes that math is a liberal arts because it gives you education for the sake of for the fun of it. Yeah.
We often talk about how classical education is really just an avenue to think. And we have these pathways camouflaged as math or science or literature as just pathways for thinking. And so to your point about order, I think that's mathematics it's a language, but it's also an illustration of order in that language that allows our children to be able to think logically and come to a specific end.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And I want to show that side of math to my students. Many a times we get lost in the topics and the details of procedures and formulas and all. But I make it a point when I am putting something before writing the formula over there, I tell them like in what way this topic is going to empower you and extend your thinking.
Excellent.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. I find it interesting that your experience has inculcated multiple systems. You've got your corporate background, your public school education. You had some public education in there, and now classical. And you have chosen specifically classical education as the vehicle in which you're investing your time, for which we're very grateful.
Yeah.
So I wondered if you could share with us what stands out most to you about the classical approach. I've heard you many times say it is the best way. What is it about it, do you think, that is so attractive to you and beneficial to our students?
Yeah, when I made a switch to education 5 years ago, so my understanding of the way education should be was the way classical education represents itself. That's the way education should be. And when I got into public education, at that point, I saw a gap in my understanding of what education should be and what was I found there in practice. And that gap has built a frustration in me. Like, this is not what I thought. I found people distracted due to so many different reasons.
Yeah.
And so when I see that classical education, so that frustration led me to make a switch at one point. After teaching in public education for a good 3 years, I thought it's time that I at least sit and explore what other things are available. Till that time, I wasn't aware that there's a different education by the name classical education. I was just searching for the education that I had and that I was looking for.
Aligned with your values.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then when I learned about classical education, so it was like a homecoming for me that, this is what I thought it to be.
How did you learn about it? I don't know that part of your story. Was it through us or was it through a different avenue?
I'll tell you. So when I decided to quit my public education, at that point, I was just sitting and thinking that, what do I do now? Do I go back to my corporate job or do something else? And I was sitting and figuring out like-minded people on LinkedIn, and that's when I saw your profile over there. And I sent a message over
You did,
there.
yes.
Yeah?
Yeah, last summer.
And then very soon I received a reply from you that, okay, come over. And we had a chat over there. You remember that?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And what I was so taken with when we talked initially was your just your alignment with the values of classical ed, which I understand maybe you had a similar education in India growing up.
Yes.
So there was a lot of synergy there for both of us. But I think just how quickly you seemed to acclimate to what we were doing. And that really impressed me. And that's what we want in our teachers. We want them to, of course, align with what this pedagogy is all about. But you could just see you lived it. It wasn't just something you teach it. It's part of who you are.
Yeah, and there's a contribution of my dad, big contribution. See, I didn't have read through the Western classics as my regular education. I was trained in the culture and tradition of my country. But my father was a well-read person, and he has read all Western literature. All the big authors like Dostoevsky and Mark Twain and all the big authors. I heard from him for the first time, and I saw those books at my home, and he was the one who recommended books. So I had, when I was teenager, from that point in time, and I did all those from out of my own interest,
That's
because it was
fabulous.
not a regular curriculum.
Right, no.
I was reading like Mirza Ghalib and something like great poets of Eastern.
Of India, yeah.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
And on the side, I was doing that. And when I came here and learned about that, I said, okay, I know this.
That's fabulous.
Yeah.
I love that. Isn't that beautiful how it all right things at right times?
Yes.
That's wonderful. Okay, so obviously you've made your home in America. I'm curious what it is that about America that resonates with you. And then if you can talk to us about how you understand the American experiment, specifically to the republic, liberty, self-governance, which we talk about all the time. What is it about that that is so attractive?
Yeah. So I'm, as you know, I'm coming from India, and from India, as part of my education, we learned about all the great empires, like British Empire. India was part of that empire. French and Portuguese and Dutch and Spanish. We never heard of American Empire, right?
Okay.
We never heard of that. We heard about American Revolution, and so even the old world, or the world that was known in 15th and 16th century, didn't know about America till late 16th century, right? 1592. About. So, but in quick, short 2 centuries or 2 or 3, couple of centuries, what America became now, that is something for everyone in the world to think. That's so important, and that's what I thought. And that's where I want to say that the revolution, the American Revolution, when I read about that, then I understand like what it means to be America and how developed it has become. So,
so what does it mean? What is that? What is it about that is so for the world?
What we learned is America is not developed and not become what it is through conquest or winning over others or wealth. It become what it is through some ideas, the great ideas. And when we look at those ideas and the founders, that's when we realize that what it is. And you have freedom and liberty and all men created equal. At that point in time, those were revolutionary, like freedom or liberty as a human right, like everybody should have that across the globe. Those things are something revolutionary. And when I see that that American experience and what India gained from that, that's also phenomenal. The founders of India, Nehru's and others, they were influenced by the founders. And when I see the Indian Constitution starts by the same 3 words, "We the people," that's a part of the Declaration of Independence. Then I understand that what happened here wasn't restricted within the borders of America. The impact gone beyond the borders, and even we benefited by that.
That's beautiful. And so perhaps too, even embracing the American tradition sounds like obviously maybe it's enhanced your own Indian tradition as well, knowing kind of where the roots were for your for India's constitution.
Yes, absolutely. Our founding fathers I know that they were influenced by the revolutionaries, like the founding fathers of America. They brought those vision into Indian political vision.
Is that why your dad had some of the Western canon as part? Why was he interested in that? I was just curious.
Yeah, he had that. And at that point, he was a well-read man, and everybody, as he said, that it's a question for everybody. How in so short period of time?
Yeah.
Nobody heard about American Empire.
No.
Like as we had Ottoman Empire, Russian Empire, this empire, they had centuries of history behind them. But for America, it's just 300 years.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. Taking what you've just shared with us, do you see a connection then between understanding those ideals and a classical education? Is that a connection for you as to why you were drawn to
it tells you to value where you are right now and how you got here. And that's very important. So if you don't understand that, you don't value what you have, right? If you know the stories of your freedom experience, why, someone from France, Lafayette, our school is named behind him, came all the way from France to fight alongside George Washington and participate in American Revolution. So all those stories, all the sacrifices the founders made, if we are not aware of those things, then we don't value what we have.
Yeah.
We take it for granted, and if we don't value something, we stop protecting that.
Yeah.
And if we don't protect it, eventually we lose it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what I say, and classical education puts it very well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my point.
I agree. You and I were talking earlier recently, and something you said really has stuck with me. You mentioned that families coming from other countries, if they truly want to understand and participate in the American tradition, a classical education is the best pathway. If I don't want to put words in your mouth, but a very significant pathway. So I was wondering if you could talk to us about, in your view, what that means, not just to live in America, but to belong to it.
Yeah.
Can you share more about that?
Living in America means you are living within the borders of America, no matter what kind of document you hold. Maybe you are a citizen or whatever you are. And belonging to America means you participate in the conversation. You understand the language. You understand the literature, the writers, the authors. You pick up a thing and you make sense of it. You can go out and participate in any conversation about that. So, and that comes from, as E.D. Hirsch very well put it, that's a cultural literacy. And reading him gave me some new insights into how beneficial it is for immigrant who is coming from other cultures. Of course, they have their own cultural heritage, but now they have decided to live here. And so if you are well versed with the core knowledge, the shared knowledge, that's when you start feeling a belonging to that. You start contributing to that.
And I find it interesting and somewhat sad that we have Americans who live right here, and yet they don't have that cultural literacy. Our system has somewhat failed them. And so, frankly, that's what impelled me to do and found the school, because I found that shared knowledge was not being shared, from generation to generation. So I think it's wonderful that obviously the ideals have spoken to you and you have embraced those, but we also have Americans right here who they don't have that knowledge yet. And we have work to do.
Yes, yes, indeed. But for those coming from different cultures, like coming from India or South Asia or from anywhere, it is your classical education. That education is a gift for them. And it's our thing. You and I have to make them aware that we are there.
Yeah, that's true. So on the other end, what would you say could be lost if students are not educated with exposure to the Western tradition and the ideas that have shaped this country and humanity?
Yes, so I covered a little bit of that when I was saying that if you don't know who you are and how you got here and the sacrifice that your founders and founding fathers have given, then you will not value it. And if you don't value it, you will eventually lose it.
Yeah.
So classical education makes a promise to, provide that education. That's why classical education is so vital.
Yeah. I have loved, Dr. Khan teaches somewhat outside of my office, and I have a glass wall there. And so I can see and hear about what you're doing with the students. Is there a moment you could share with us that has reminded you why you enjoy teaching? You teach a variety of our students. Have you had any moments that have been poignant that you could share? Yeah,
as you said, I also teach, the students who need additional support.
Yes.
And those are the students who may have internalized, because I had conversation with when they just joined. they would say, maybe I'm not good at math or something. And when they spend time with me, maybe a week or 2 weeks or 4 weeks, and after that, when I see a change in them, that math is not so hard, and I think I'm good at it. And very recently, one student, I wouldn't name her, she said, I stopped in my class in math. Imagine somebody came she needs additional support, and now she's doing. Those are the moments. And that happens quite often. Even today, that happened with one student. Those are the moments that I thought, I'm making a difference.
Yeah, yeah. You are making a huge difference, and it's fun. To your point, just for our audience sake, we have a number of our students who are veterans and who, honestly, when they start younger, there's no opportunity for time to, squeeze in there and make a gap in terms of their knowledge base. But when they come to us in middle school, unfortunately, the previous school or the system has not served them well. Honestly, and this could be another conversation, but the tech, the computers in the classrooms have really usurped the opportunity for our children to know how math works. I've seen the biggest gap in math because of the computers. So that we can get to that in a minute. But what we're finding is that the students who are coming to us in 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade are the ones who have these gaps. And truly, it is now or it could be never for them to arrest that chasm. And you are a huge stopgap in that process, which, these kids will forever thank you for helping them. First off, not only understand math, but then hopefully come to love it, which is what I'm seeing.
I agree. You have placed me uniquely there. Of course, I would like to have more students like that.
Yeah.
But that's students who are finding it hard, and I'm making them enjoy that later. Yeah.
So let's just dovetail for just a second about your background in global tech, AI perhaps, and education. Benefits, consequences, I'm just curious what your own experience has been in that. And if, we don't have computers at Lafayette, are you thinking that's a good way to go? Or do you think there's a marriage here that could be harmonious, or what do you think?
Yeah. I was immersed in technology. That's where I come from. So I understand all that.
Yeah.
So the most pleasant thing when I walked into this classical education, that school, was that the students are not distracted. And so what we need to protect is the ability of our students to get into deep thinking, to have sustained focus on problems, to wrestle with problems, get their own ideas. And technology, whatever we have and whatever other schools are using, are a huge distraction. And ed tech companies, they think education is a big money-making domain, and it is.
It
actually.
is, yes.
It is. And they think it's an area where they can build something and come and present somebody and get. So those things are taking away the ability of sustained focus. That's what in the schools that I taught there, they had having access to internet and AI takes away all the
Opportunity
from student to just even have a sustained focus on any problem. So I would say that that's a bigger strength, and we can always talk about, of course, after graduating, students are going to go to the college, and there has to be some point where we do a smooth transition. We can talk about that.
Right.
And we are deeply thinking about how to make it easier for students. And we will not leave students who go to higher education will be surprised by what they have. So we have a smooth transition.
So would you say that keeping, let's put it this way, having students in an environment that's technology free, at least K through what, is a healthy...
I would say 10, 11.
Yeah. So someone coming from global tech, quite astute in that you're saying computers gone at least till 10th grade, and then maybe a soft transition, which honestly is what we do. I mean, they do a lot of their writing, but it's only literally, I don't know if you've seen this, they walk to a closet, they get the computers out, they go to the classroom, use them, and put them back in the closet again.
Yeah, it doesn't take a very, computer savvy person, me or anybody, to figure that out.
Right.
Where I taught, we teachers, we had a quite understanding that, that technology is doing more harm to our children than good. We teachers, we knew that. Nobody had that, like, okay, I'm not. People were confused what to. And you made a decision, and we value making a deep thinker, and we have to protect that. We have bigger things to protect. So I think even if a little bit here and there we are losing on that, but I'm very sure that we are saving much more valuable things. And that's ability to think.
Yes. Well, so that kind of dovetails into sort of my wrap up here with our conversation. What is giving you hope about education and about the Western tradition here that we're teaching?
Yeah, so parents are actively seeking opportunities for their children. And parents are asking all sorts of questions, like what it means to be educated for my child. And another thing is, in this world of AI, whether my child need to have all the knowledge and all. So both kind of conversations are going on. And I would say, like those who say that in the age of AI, where everything is available by just a short prompt, why do my child will have all the knowledge? But I want to tell to them that knowledge is not an ornament for thinking. Knowledge is a fuel for thinking. If you don't have knowledge, you can't think. And that's not a rocket science. Everybody, if I have to write a paper, if I write a small 5-page paper, I have to read, 100 different articles. Even more if you go and see in the reference list. So knowledge is more important today than ever before because you have to validate what AI is giving you. It may give you garbage.
Right.
If you are AI-driven person, if you think it has everything, then you are on a very sticky slope,
Yeah.
So knowledge is important. And you and I need to answer those parents' questions who say both kind of things. Those who want real education, of course, we have to tell that opportunity is available. And those who think why to have that memorizing and learning and acquiring a lot of knowledge when everything is here, we have to tell, if you don't have knowledge, you can't think.
That's right.
You can't be a part of any conversation.
That's right.
Till the time we have some technology where we can build that AI and through neural network is connected to a mind.
Please no.
No, that's because in neuroscience we have not done a lot of work. So that's a long time. So knowledge is important, learning is important, and deep thinking is important.
Yeah. Gosh, there's so much more I would like to talk with you about, but we'll pause there. I thank you, obviously not just for this conversation, but for the contribution you're making at Lafayette, and of course the impact you're having on our students. And appreciate so much your perspective. And I'm grateful we found each other when we did.
Yeah.
And you've been just a great blessing to our culture and our school and our students. So. Thank you.
Wonderful. Likewise. And I'm still exploring a lot of, because from your library, from the teachers and people around me. Yeah. So thanks to you for that.
Well, you're welcome, and may the journey continue.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for joining us today, and hope this has been helpful. And if it has, share it with friends, and we'll look forward to the next time we get together. Thank you.
Thank you.